As the chairman of the Intergovernmental Affairs Subcommittee, Mr. Palmer, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the witnesses for being here. I think it goes without saying that infrastructure is a critical issue that directly affects the quality of our life in our communities, and I think we can have good infrastructure without compromising environmental quality. The issue is, have we gone overboard to the degree that we now have infrastructure that basically gets a D grade? We've got a deteriorating infrastructure that's having a significant impact on the economy. We've got congestion on the highways that cost us $160 million a year in lost time and wasted fuel, which, by the way, when you have that kind of congestion, increases some of the air quality issues that we're all trying to deal with. We've got power outages that have an additional impact of $150 million a year. All these costs, by the way, get passed on to the consumer in one form or another. In 2017, the American Society of Civil Engineers analyzed the state of the nation's infrastructure and estimated that American families lose upwards to $3,400 each year because of it. And they further scored our country's infrastructure, as I said before, and gave it a grade of D. Fixing failing infrastructure should be a top priority. It's certainly a top priority with me. And not only just fixing the failing infrastructure, but improving the quality of what we have and expanding it as our economy grows, and it's growing as the Atlanta Fed announced just last week that they expect GDP to be 4.6% for this quarter, which is a huge improvement over the economic conditions of the country over the last few years. We're going to need higher quality, better infrastructure. The lengthy permitting process, the multi-agency approvals, and the tens of thousands of pages of environmental impact assessments are causing all kinds of delays, and they have been for decades. The cost to rebuild infrastructure will dramatically increase due to inflation and prolonged construction costs. As an having worked for two engineering construction companies, I know the time and money it takes to get a project off the ground, and I've used this example in a couple other hearings of what happened down in Texas, where you had a state road, a U.S. highway, and an infrastructure. The state road was delayed 33.5 months. It added over $5 million to the cost of the project. The state road was delayed 5 years. It added almost $18 million to the cost of the project. And the interstate, it's a mile and a half, adding an interchange, was delayed for 11 months, and it cost about $447,000 a month in delay costs. That added almost $4 million to the project, which all of that is infrastructure money. Contractors and project developers are forced to comply with dozens of permitting requirements spread across multiple agencies that are subject to reviews and often duplicative and redundant, and then they wait. They wait for responses and approvals from federal agencies. Waiting costs money. Delays cost money. We see it when, as I just gave those examples from Texas, when a project started and then they have to delay. These contractors are forced, you have to pay the contractors for their people being on site and their equipment on site, and then if you shut it down, a 5-year delay, they got to move off site and then restage. People are hired and they're ready to work, and they expect to get paid regardless of whether or not the federal government is meeting the deadlines. As I said, moving equipment around, compliance administrative tasks, updating contracts, they've grown out of date, delays. These are all delays that cost money. And it adds up over years. These delay costs eat away the resources that could be put to other critical projects. And my home state of Alabama has experienced infrastructure project delays firsthand. We've been trying to get the Northern Belt Line, I-459, built. And the funding for that was first approved in 1989. We've built 2 miles of road. The project would create a 6-lane beltway around the city of Birmingham. We're the largest city in the country without a complete belt line. So 30 years later, 2 miles of road. Federal Highway Administration recently predicted that construction of the remaining 50 miles will take another 35 years. I'll be 100 years old. And, Mr. Chairman, I promise, if they take that long, I'm going to drive on it. So we're literally throwing our infrastructure dollars down the drain with these delays. The current administration is working to modernize the nation's infrastructure and cure the permitting inefficiencies. In August of last year, the President issued Executive Order 13807 to streamline the environmental review and permitting process. The executive order established a one federal decision when it comes to major infrastructure projects. This gives a single agency the authority to navigate the project through the permit authorization process as well as the federal environmental review. The President also encouraged cooperation between the executive branch and Congress to shorten the time-consuming environmental review process to 2 years. I look forward to hearing from today's witnesses about the federal permitting process, including how it contributes to a backlog of needed improvements and how reform proposals can address these problems. I thank the witnesses for being here, and I yield back.
Okay, thank you. And I'm pleased to introduce our witnesses at this